Picture this. You are instantly transported back into 19th century Russia, the slums of St. Petersburg. It's probably gloomy, I would imagine pretty cold, and everybody goes by at least 3 different names that people refer to them by, and it's very confusing. There you meet Raskolnikov, also known as Rodion Romanovich, or just Rodya, and he immediately starts raving to you about how he has axe-murdered somebody because he desperately wants to be caught because of his guilty conscience, and he is just overall insane. If you picture that, you basically have transported yourself fully into the world of Crime and Punishment. So Crime and Punishment was written by Russian novelist Fyodor Dostoevsky, and it chronicles the story of Raskolnikov, a young law student in St. Petersburg who is destitute, and the main plot point of the book is when he decides to murder a pawnbroker woman in order to steal her money. And this book is like, sometimes people call it the first psychological thriller, and I think that's a pretty apt description of it, but it's also so much more than that. So without further ado, let's talk about my interpretation of Crime and Punishment / interesting things I thought while reading it / random stuff. This book review is going to feature some spoilers. I will mark the sections that are going to have spoilers in it, and I'll start with the non-spoiler section. So one of the first things that I thought was really interesting about this book was its exploration of justice. People like to think that we live in a just world. We write books where the bad guys get their comeuppance and good always triumphs over evil. And we like to imagine that everything happens for a reason, that there is a benevolent God who watches over us and will reward good people for their behavior and punish bad people. But in real life, the world doesn't seem to work like that. And this is one of the things that I thought about a lot when I was reading Crime and Punishment, because as the title suggests, in some way, it's about justice. And the question is, how can we live in a just world when people like Sonia, one of the other main characters of the novel, is a 18-year-old girl forced into prostitution to feed her family because her father is a drunkard and drinks away all of their family's money? And how can we live in a world where people are starving in the slums of this city, and meanwhile cranky, mean pawnbrokers are just locking all of their money into a box and abusing their half-sisters? So Raskolnikov views the pawnbroker woman as a stain on humanity, as somebody who has a net negative effect on society, and he decides that the best thing to do is to kill her. And by killing her, he thinks that he will have a good impact in the world, because if he kills her, then he will be able to take her money, and he will be able to help his family, and he'll be able to finish his schooling and have a good thing. So we have kind of like a utilitarian justification, the ends justify the means sort of thing, sort of justification for this. So it sounds a bit harsh. He's like, yeah, she doesn't deserve to live, so I'm just gonna kill her. And then there's the other theme about the sort of Raskolnikov's justification for the murder, which is that some great men, or extraordinary people, are able to transgress societally accepted moral codes in order to do something for the greater good, or do something that they will be recognized as heroes for. And he thinks that he can be one of these people. He compares himself to Napoleon. Napoleon obviously murdered people in his conquests, but he was still recognized as a hero for France. So Raskolnikov thinks, now it's not moral for me to murder this old woman, but surely if I do it, I can emulate this kind of thing, and I can be recognized as a great man. I will not feel any guilt because I'm doing this for the benefit of humanity, for the benefit of society. So this is what he's thinking as he goes to commit the murder. And I've heard a lot of people interpret Raskolnikov as kind of like this ultimate nihilist / materialist, rationalist person. So some things are considered good and bad in different contexts, and Raskolnikov decides that he's going to have no regard for conventional morality, and he's just going to violate it, and it will have a net benefit. Of course, this doesn't work out for him. As soon as he commits the murder, he is crushed by remorse and guilt, and he, quite frankly, is not the composed, smooth, slick criminal that he thinks he's going to be. He immediately absolutely loses it. He goes around practically confessing to everyone because he desperately wants to get caught for the crime, and he desperately wants to be implicated in the murder, but he doesn't want to actually confess to anybody. He becomes extremely paranoid. He senses the police closing in on him from all angles, and he intensely regrets this decision. He starts to realize that his theory about him being able to freely transgress all these moral laws is deeply flawed, and he is tortured by his conflicting emotions. On one hand, he still thinks he didn't do anything wrong. On the other hand, he knows that he did do something wrong, and that is his proverbial punishment for the crime of murdering the old woman. The whole thing about justice and morality really had me thinking throughout the book. There's also a lot of stuff about religion and how religion relates to this sense of justice and morality. Sonia, the prostitute, is in many ways a foil to Raskolnikov. She is extremely compassionate and hopeful, and despite her horrible circumstances, she has faith in God, and she believes that she has compassion for Raskolnikov, even though Raskolnikov derides her hopefulness and her faith, and says, you think God is going to help you, you think God is going to save you out of this situation. And so since Sonia is such a strong foil to Raskolnikov, he finds himself innately drawn to her and also repelled from her. So he's disturbed by her, but he also is drawn to her intensely, and she in many ways becomes his salvation, as it says in the synopsis. The other rather interesting thing that I noticed while reading Crime and Punishment is Dostoevsky's constant use of dreams and dream sequences to explore a certain theme or foreshadow something about the plot. For example, there is the dream that Raskolnikov has right before he commits the murder, where he dreams about witnessing some people beating a horse to death, and this is extremely brutal sequence in the story, and it kind of foreshadows the violence that will ensue with Raskolnikov. There's also the dream he has after committing the murder, where he imagines his landlady being beaten by the police, illustrating his almost desire for a punishment for his crime. He's torn between wanting to be caught and not wanting to be caught. Now I'm going to quickly move into a spoiler section so I can talk about the last dream Raskolnikov has, because I have some things to say about that, and then so we can also talk about Svidrigailov. Oh my god, okay. Svidrigailov. I can't freaking say it.
Svidrigailov.
Svidrigailov. Anyways, alright, spoiler section imminent. Click off if you don't want to be spoiled. Okay, so at the end of the book, when Raskolnikov is in jail in Siberia, serving out his sentence after confessing, there's a part where it talks about another dream that he had, and it says, he dreamt that the whole world was condemned to a terrible new strange plague that had come to Europe from the depths of Asia. Never had men considered themselves so intellectual and so completely in possession of the truth as these sufferers. Never had they considered their decisions, their scientific conclusions, their moral convictions so infallible. So essentially at this point, I really thought this was really important part of the book, because it's essentially him coming to the gradual realization that he was mistaken in thinking that he was above, that he could conceivably act above moral law. He realized that he is not one of these so-called exceptional people, and he realized that he did something wrong. He realized essentially that he made a mistake, that what he did, despite his grand justifications for it, he still didn't have a solid, real justification for it. And then finally, Svidrigailov, he is the like pedophile guy, the overall creeper, who really has a big crush on Dunya, Raskolnikov's sister, and after he tries to rape her and then she says that she will never love him, he is shocked, and then he feels guilty for being a pedo and a sexual predator, and he kills himself at the end of the book. And so this subplot also really stuck with me because he, in another way, was a foil to Raskolnikov. He also, in parallel to Raskolnikov, also committed crimes. He constantly preyed on women, but unlike Raskolnikov, he eventually does commit suicide. Raskolnikov doesn't commit suicide, even though he considers it, and it kind of showed the two different ways that the two of them reacted, the two different ways that the two of them were quote-unquote punished. And the other thing about it is the difference between him and Svidrigailov is Raskolnikov, until the end, it's a little bit unclear whether he actually feels guilty about his crime or whether his feelings are just projections of the reactions that his sister Dunya and his mother Pulcheria have about him. And so that was the long rambling rant. So overall, Crime and Punishment, it's a psychological thriller. It's extremely immersive. You will become invested into the stories of these characters. Each character is extremely fleshed out and has deep, complex psychology. One of the things that Dostoevsky is renowned for is his command of writing complex, psychologically tormented characters who often reflect real patterns in human psychology and in human nature. And though this is going to be a bit controversial, I think, the person I'm about to bring up, but Jordan Peterson actually has a couple of videos about Dostoevsky that are pretty interesting to watch. So regardless if you like his more political things, he does have some relatively interesting videos on literature, specifically Dostoevsky, so check that out if you want. And yeah, so I sincerely doubt many people stuck through this entire video, but if you did, thank you so much for watching. If you like videos like this, talking about books, reflecting on books, please subscribe to my channel, leave a like on this video, it really helps me out, and comment down below your thoughts on Crime and Punishment. I really want to hear other people's interpretations and have some bookish discussions. That's why I have this channel. So thanks for watching, and I'll hopefully see you in the next video.